Muted by default.
Sorry, I was muted.
Default, when we start adding other people, we won't slam with dogs and children.
Yeah.
You're muted by default, Jennifer. Just unmute yourself.
You're on mute.
Chris, you're breaking up a bit.
Yeah.
Need some bandwidth on that Wi-Fi. Well, it looks like a big meeting here.
You bet.
I'm having my quick lunch. I didn't quite get it done in time.
Wow.
Hey, Jim. Ellie.
There they all come. Wow.
Hey,
Hey. Welcome aboard.
thank you.
Let's see. There's
I guess I should get my proper regalia on here.
Good background too.
Yeah, my husband's sleeping, so I can't get my other tartans out.
Yeah.
He's taking his afternoon nap. Hey, Andrew, while we're in this period of sort of waiting, I'm digging finally into the Morrisons of Aberdeen.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Now,
in
is that
Northern
the-
Ireland.
As Bogney, is that the same as the Bogney Morrisons?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
That's about all I know. There was a James Morrison who was the provost of Aberdeen City in
Mhm.
around 1650 something or other. And then another couple of Jameses were there in the 1730s. But the one in the 1650s is tied up with some of the battles of the royalists and so on. The problem is that that John Morrison of Londonderry,
Mhm.
who is Charter John and his son Charter John, he is reputed to have been born in Aberdeenshire. No further information. And clearly there's plenty of Morrisons there, and they tend to be with one R. So, it's probably likely. But how does somebody from an area that's more or less Anglican as opposed to more Presbyterian get to Northern Ireland? Well, it turns out he was a Covenanter. And so we need to figure that out. Anyway, I'm working on it.
Well, I think there were a lot of Anglicans, a lot of Episcopalians at one point, and they some of them became Presbyterians
Yeah,
down the road.
but the Argyle was where the real Covenanters were, and
Right.
most of the folks in the area of Aberdeenshire and that area were more royalist, tending towards more Episcopalian forms, willing to let the established churches, they called it, you know, work with the Presbyterian forms a bit more. Anyway, sorry to take over here.
Interesting times.
Yep, but I think it's important actually for all of us to consider that we actually have, I don't know what the number is, but I always say 30 different DNA tracks.
Yeah.
In our common tent. And while we talk the talk of all the history and near mythology of the families from Lewis and Uist rather, we more or less forget that there was at least one major group over there in Aberdeen and probably 5 or 6 others around that we should be paying some attention to.
Right. There, you know, in other words, there were some Morrisons who were quite civilized at the time.
Well, no, I wouldn't call them civilized. They look more civilized in some ways, but I'm not sure I'd call them civilized.
In the eyes of the Scottish Crown, they were certainly more civilized.
Yeah, the way I phrased it in what I'm writing, and I'll send it to you eventually for an edit, was that the lairds of the Isles were considered to be scalawags and pirates and generally mercenaries and real rough people by the King James and company, and that the lairds were quite happy with that description.
Yeah. Well, remember he did commission someone from the Aberdeenshire area to go and extirpate within a year the barbarous peoples of the Isles.
Now that's a piece I hadn't heard, that the guy he chose.
Well, it was the Marquis of Huntly, the first Marquis of Huntly,
Okay.
who was, you know, the chief of the Gordons.
Yeah, those Gordons.
Right. He was commissioned by James VI, while still
Right.
James VI, to go
Right.
and basically commit genocide in the Outer Hebrides.
Yeah, the fire and storm or whatever. Fire and axe.
And unfortunately for my ancestors, he was arrested on suspicion of being a Catholic before he could leave on this expedition.
Well, it's also an interesting thing because you have the split between the folks in Lewis and the folks in Uist. The Uist ones seem to have been closer to the Skye folk and the armorers, and the Lewis ones seem to have been the Breva, and they may have gone more after the latter rather than the former.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. They would have gone after the context for that was very much more in the troubles of the Lewis at the time. So it would have been about the Breves and the MacLeod
And it
dynasty.
matches what they were trying to do in Ireland at the time to extend the royal law and English ways into Ireland, and that's, you know, that was exactly what they did with the plantation up here. Anyway, I'm sorry,
See if I can get a better picture.
Michael. Didn't mean to take over, but I thought while we were waiting for people to arrive.
Oh, no, I love listening to you when you talk because I always learn something that I didn't know, or if I knew it, I always learn a little bit more because I am not as knowledgeable as some, and I never will be.
No, that's not true.
Hello, Ali.
I have.
Thank you.
I like the backdrop, Ali.
Thanks. I went rooting around in my pictures for it.
That's good. I've never quite
What is-
mastered the backdrop.
All right, so I have 508, and I don't know how many more people are going to join us, but if they miss us or they can't get in, then that means that we had at least 100 people here, which would be okay. And if you're not here now, then you can watch it later at your own, on your own convenience. But okay, so we're just going to get started. So today is March 6th, 2021. Thank you everybody for being with us at our first open forum executive committee Zoom meeting. This is our first one, so I'm pretty excited, and I hope it goes well. If it doesn't, hopefully it'll go well in the future. I do have an agenda, We do have two 40-minute sessions set up with a break in between the two. I don't know how long the break is because I only have the one screen and I can't scroll in between it. But if we run out of our 40-minute time frame, the second one will start after at some point. For those of you who don't already know me, I am Michael Morrison. I am the current chairman of Clan Morrison Society of North America. I have been a lifetime member of the society for going on 2 years, which is short in comparison to many of you. But I have been attending the AGM at Stone Mountain annually for more than a decade. And I have been actively going to Highland Games since 2021. I am from Dothan, Alabama. I have a wife, Sarah, and 2 children, Freya and Saoirse, 4 and 1 respectively. And I am a nuclear electrician at Joseph M. Farley Nuclear Generation Station in Southeast Alabama. We do have 3 special guests with us today in attendance. We have Robert Alistair Morrison of Rookty, Chief of Clan Morrison. Ali, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Mike.
We have, thank you for being here. We have Lord Dunrossel and Clan Chieftain of Clan Morrison of North America, Andrew Morrison. Andrew, thank you for being with us again. And we have Chris Gilmore, Shawnee for Clan Morrison. Gentlemen, if you would like to introduce yourselves to the rest of the clan, please do so.
Well, I'm Alistair. I'm the chief, as Michael said. I'm a high school senior who's just about to graduate, and I'm hoping to go into something related to computer science in the next few years in university. I am a martial artist. I dragged my dad into that and got him to do it with me for 9 years. I play the violin, excuse me. I play the violin and have been since the 3rd grade. It's really fun. I've learned a lot of Celtic music lately, a few jigs, things to dance to. Yeah, and I'm the vice president of my school's robotics team, but I'm happy to be here and be able to listen to these sessions that we have going on tonight.
Thank you for joining us, Ali.
It's because I think there are a lot of people who haven't seen your face before, and it's great that you can join in and introduce yourself in that way. And everybody wishes you a long and enjoyable time as Chief of Clan Morrison.
Thank you. Thank you.
You look considerably different than when I last saw you when you were about 12.
Yeah, 4 years does that occasionally.
Yeah.
Especially this time in my life.
Alistair, is it possible you are the youngest clan chief?
Possible, but I can't give you a definitive statement.
Because there's a TV show, Men in Kilts, and they were having a bagpipe lesson from a man who claimed to be the youngest clan chief, but he didn't say how old he was.
Well, I'm 16, so
Yeah.
that's where I'm putting my toe in the door, wherever that gets me.
Well, we'll talk to the Guinness Book of Records and see.
It's probably more likely that I'm the
That's
youngest
actually
current chief than youngest in history.
Oh, no, current, yeah.
So Tim, had this other guy's voice changed?
Well, he was playing the bagpipe, so it was hard to say.
Because Ali's voice has clearly changed, so.
Yeah, I think he had, yeah.
Well, Ali, maybe you should be volunteering to give them a fiddle lesson to go along.
Fiddle's on my wall back there.
That's right. Well, we like having Rookty as the backdrop anyway, so that's good. And do you want to sort of talk about your plans in the future to maybe move over there, become a resident Scot at some point?
Sure. Well, so as I mentioned, I'm applying to computer science at university, but I'm primarily applying to UK schools because I want to go live a good portion of my life over there in the UK. I'm hoping to get into some Scottish schools. I've been getting a few decisions back right now, and that's looking like it's where I'm most likely going to end up. So, yeah.
That's wonderful. And,
Mine,
I was going to say, you've also been trying to learn a little Gaelic as well, I believe.
I have, but due to things in my life that have recently happened, that's kind of fallen by the wayside a little. I can ask you how you are and maybe understand a few responses, but that's about where my Gaelic extends. Well, there's one word that might be appropriate, fáilse, which is welcome.
There we go. Well, I mean, what I understand in the big picture, and I think it's helpful for other people to know too, is that you do have this idea of actually living in Ruchi and being a part of the island community and speaking Gaelic. And one of the attractions about a future and a career in computer science is that in theory, it doesn't matter where you live. You could live even in the Outer Hebrides and pursue a career of that kind. And I think it's very helpful for people in the clan over here to know that you are that committed to your heritage and that it matters that to you.
I mean, I definitely am. I'm intending, I skipped first grade, so I'm a year younger than all of my peers, too, for some of them for now. And as part of that, I've always intended to take a gap year. And my plans before COVID were to spend that gap year living in Ruchi, working on the island, and just live there for a year, gain that experience, interact with the community, be there and learn. Hopefully pick up a little Gaelic and maybe a bit of an accent, but those were secondary to just wanting to be there. And when since my dad came into the house a few years ago, we have gone over every summer that it was safe to before COVID, and we've been renovating Ruchi, which is the beautiful backdrop I have here. And also just going and seeing the historical sites around the Hebrides. My family, over our time there, we've walked out to every ancient burial cairn that has been located on the island, and just seen some of those sites. We've gone out to some standing stones. We've actually gone up to the Butt of Lewis and visited Duneshtian one summer. That was really fun. Grateful that my granddad opened the bridge so that I didn't have to get there the way my dad did at first, which if you don't know Duneshtian, my grandfather Ian opened a bridge so that you can just walk across happily like modern civilized folk do. But before that, you would have to climb down a mostly sheer rock face, swim across a small channel, and then climb back up another basically sheer rock face just to get.
I have done that, but I didn't have to do much swimming. It was more paddling. It was low tide, and that was the key. And I had the same guide, Kenny Mobile, as your dad did. But I'm very grateful for the bridge being there, and the North American Clan Society raised most of the funds for that. So that was a great achievement for the Clan Society.
Yes, I have a few pictures of my dad climbing up that. No, I wonder if I'll ever end up having to do it.
I think it's a rite of passage.
I'll do it eventually.
well, God willing, we'll get back there in a year or two, and we can all skip the bridge and we can do the paddle.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, the reason we went for 2020 was because Art said to me when I said, well, in 2025, the moon will be will be kissing the woman on the mountain, and we should try to go there. He said, well, I'll be dead by then. And so he said, please do it sooner. So we set it for 2025. Unfortunately, he died before that even happened. And now we've all been delayed. So maybe, I'm not sure if we'll wait that long, but basically, the idea is to try to catch that celestial event from Kalanish, which you see in the background here.
Oh,
I've been there. Kalanish is a very nice standing stone circle. Really big.
Guys, I need to move us along a little bit on our agenda because we are under a little bit of time constraints.
course, Mike.
Andrew, would you like to introduce yourself and Chris afterwards?
Okie dokie. Well, I go by either Andrew Morrison or Lord Den Russell. In most of the Scottish contexts that I'm involved with, it's the Dan Russell name, but I try to make sure that people know that I'm a Morrison anyway. I am not, therefore, a member of your executive board because I'm family, really, and I think it's inappropriate. But I try to attend every meeting that I can anyway. I have a fairly active role in a number of Scottish organizations in this country. So I'm the sort of US representative for the Standing Council of Scottish Chiefs, even though obviously Ali is the chief and Rue before him. But they asked me to go on the Standing Council a number of years back as well, in a way that is non-heritable. In other words, when I die, my son Callum doesn't automatically go on the Standing Council too. It's just something they just wanted me on there. And then I'm a honorary patron of the American Scottish Foundation, on the advisory board of COSCA, which is the Council of Scottish Clans and Associations, and currently vice chair, previous chair of the Society of Scottish Armigers, which deals with heraldry. So lots of different organizations. Last couple of years, I've been the keynote speaker for what's now called the Scottish North American Community Conference. Some of you have seen that. Now that it's being done virtually, you can tune in much more easily. So anyway, I try to keep an eye on what other clans are doing that way too. I think it's very helpful. One of the great advantages of COSCA is that it serves as a kind of trade association for groups like the Clan Morrison Society of North America. And we can learn best practices from them. And so if some clan is doing something that's really worked, then we should be knowing about it and trying to do the same thing. Equally, if some clans tried something and it's been a catastrophic failure, we would like to know about that too and try to avoid doing the same thing. That's it. Happy to answer any questions. Otherwise, I'll pass it over to Chris.
Shawnee for North America, which means I preserve the chief's genealogy, act as an advisor on heraldry, and a few other things. I'll be a master of ceremonies for Ali's eventual.
Your audio is really horrible, Chris. I don't know whether there's anything that you can do to make it a little clearer.
Chris, do you have two
Yeah, I think
things
you
on
got-
at the same time?
Feedback going on.
Got one. Is this any better?
Yes.
Okay, I got to be closer to it and hold it up to my face. All right, basically, I'm the Shawnee for North America. I'm responsible for preserving the chief's genealogy, advising on heraldry, and a few other things. I'll be a master of ceremonies of sorts for when we eventually invest Ali formally as chief. I'm a longtime heraldry nerd, webmaster for the society, and a few other things. That's about it.
And because Chris is so modest, I will add that he may be the most knowledgeable person in North America when it comes to heraldry. We're extremely fortunate to have him in Clan Morrison. And so when the new Earl of Eglinton and Winton, chief of the Montgomerys, decided to raise his standard on a very wet day that Michael was at in Stone Mountain a couple of years back, Chris really played a critical role in helping design some of his the banners and the I'm going to use the wrong term, Chris, because I'm not the expert that you are, and helping design the entire ceremony itself. So it was a lot of fun, and it was such a success that proper sort of investiture ceremony and the raising of the standard, that this year, if the games goes ahead in Grandfather Mountain, the Matheson chief plans to do a similar raising of the standard in at Grandfather, which might be fun to watch. And Ali, I was hoping, there is a standing invitation I had mentioned to your mother that if you're in the country still and you're healthy and you've maybe been vaccinated, then I'd love to take you along to that Grandfather Mountain. I think, and the Morrisons always have a tremendous presence at Grandfather as well.
Thank you for the invitation, Andrew.
Yeah.
All right. So I think we're gonna move it on. I'm gonna try to get through the rest of the agenda in the next 15 minutes. If we can't, we'll, like I said, we'll take a break and then we'll finish up the rest in the next meeting, and then I'll open it up for just an open forum for questions for people who have any questions about the comings and goings of the executive committee. And if any of our guests would like to, bat some answers to some questions that people may have for them. But okay, so moving on with the executive committee. Actually, do you guys want to introduce yourself? Any of you guys have introductions to make?
Well, I'm Jan Tremblay, not Roland, as my little sign says. I've been a member of Clan Morrison Society since the early 1990s, and I'm seneschal for the Northeastern region, which includes New York and New England. I also convene a games in Central Florida in January. I'm a member of I'm a lifetime member, and I also am a member at large of the executive committee, and have been for a number of years. I also convene at Loon Mountain, which is quite a large games in September, which is usually a 3-day event. And that's it in a nutshell.
Thank you.
I'm Bob Morrison of Kansas City, not the Bob Morrison of South Carolina or North Carolina, which is whatever it is. South, okay. I've been secretary for, I think since 2013. So my father was very interested in the genealogy and his heritage, and that kind of got me interested when I was younger. Luckily, Ian Morrison from Scotland, who kind of helped with the first trip during the gathering in 2009, came over, was in Kansas City at our Highland Games in 2008, and I met him there, and he invited or told me about the gathering, and so that's when I really got a lot involved. So.
All right. It would appear that this meeting no longer has a time limit. So we just motor on through.
Just briefly, I'm Jennifer
Chris,
Wilkett.
did you have anything to do with that?
Oh, it's
My name is Jennifer Wilkett.
Okay.
My grandmother was a pure Morrison. I like to think of it that way. So I'm continuing that tradition. And so I think I've been probably fairly public with the planning for going to the Isles. So I won't say a whole lot more. I'm an at-large member of the council.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jim Morrison from New Mexico. There's several of us in the society, so if you see my name anywhere, it's usually Jim in NM, just to set it straight. I'm a past chairman of the North American Society, past convener coordinator and convener in New Mexico, Texas, and Colorado. Haven't held an office in quite some time, but still hang around and enjoy these things. I do want to give a special thanks to one of the gentlemen on the screen that during my time before, during, and after as a officer and everything else was my go-to source of everything. Andrew, you were an amazing help in everything that we did out here. Fortunately, I live not next door, but within simple driving distance of San Antonio.
You're a better driver than I am then.
Yeah, for those of us out here, it's fairly close. And I'm glad to see us doing that. Forward to the next gathering.
What's that, 12 hours?
Yeah, about 10.
If you're a former policeman, you don't get caught speeding. That's the
All right, thank you, Jim. Anyone else? Okay, moving on. Let us see. It is with regret that I must announce that former Chairman Jeff Moore has passed away recently. I don't have many details, but I do know that he had a long fought illness and he has recently passed. Jeff was most instrumental in the Dunishton Bridge project. I don't know how involved he was, but I do know he was very involved. Him and Dr. Ian worked together on that, and he has passed, so he will be missed. Members at large elections will occur this year in October. Historically, they have been held at the Stone Mountain Games at the AGM there. And that's where I had been attending them for at least the last 10 years. So I know it's been happening for a long time. One of the things that we'd like to maybe talk about doing is hosting an AGM on the West Coast or South Central North America here in the US. I know that we have a really large dense population of Morrisons that are active on the West Coast as opposed to Atlanta. So we'll probably in the next month or two look into maybe even Colorado. I think would be a lovely backdrop for one of their events. Any event that happens on the West Coast in October, we're going to look into that to see if we can just diversify where we're holding the AGMs. Okay, next. One of the changes that we voted on recently was changing of the term seneschal to regional coordinator. And the reason we did that was mostly because the term seneschal is kind of a nonsensical term that's not used in the UK. It's kind of an American word. If Andrew wants to explain that better, he can.
It's also a Norman French thing, and that's not our heritage. So it really doesn't really belong or speak to any kind of history, especially with regard to the Isles. There would never have been a seneschal in the Clan Morrison in the olden days. So it's besides that, it if you say you're a seneschal, people say, well, what's that? And so that's just awkward, I think. And the other thing I think in the back of my mind certainly has been, and this is something that I've seen discussed by others on the Standing Council of Scottish Chiefs, is a desire to use titles in a very careful fashion to make a distinction between the sort of role or title that you would have within a clan as appointed by a chief. So those that might be titles like Chris has, for instance, as the sort of guardian of the heritage of the clan and the person who can organize events for the chief himself, but make a distinction between those and the titles are appropriate to a society that is not the same as the clan. So the Lord Lion, for instance, is very careful. He will not consider granting arms to someone who holds a position within a clan society because they hold those positions in a clan society, but will consider granting arms to somebody like Chris, who holds a position directly from a chief as an officer of the clan rather than of the clan society. So, you know, the appropriate sort of titles for clan societies and for societies in general are titles like, you know, chairman, president, vice president, and treasurer, and so on. That's the thinking. And I'll tell you, nothing, since you're talking about West Coast Highland Games, it is a frequent topic of grumbling and muttering within the Standing Council that the Pleasanton Games in California, which is the largest single Highland Games in the entire United States, but people throw the titles around of chief and chieftain just for their board over there. And so again, inappropriate as far as the Standing Council is concerned. Let them call themselves president and vice president of the games, but don't use titles and positions that belong to the clan. Long answer, I'm sorry.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, so that clears that up, maybe confuses it for anybody else, but you were going. Okay. One of the things that we do use is clanmorrison.net. So you can go on to clanmorrison.net and look at which regions people are already appointed to. So we have seneschals who are now being referred to as regional coordinators. And under them, if you're in a state that has a regional coordinator and you want to convene at a Highlands Games, which should start opening up soon across the nation, hopefully, you can do that. And then that would be the ladder. If you wanted to be a convener, you would have a regional coordinator in your area who would then work with a national coordinator. So currently we do not have a national coordinator, but we have several regional coordinators and then numerous conveners under them. We are going to be looking for a national coordinator, which will be a board appointed position. It will be more likely than not that we will choose from the pool of current regional coordinators and conveners. If you are a convener or a regional coordinator already and you'd like to throw your hat into that pool, please make sure that I know. One of the things that we've been talking about before at several of our other meetings is how can the clan society generate funds? As it stands now, we only get money from new members, which would be lifetime members, and annual members. And then if we have anonymous donations, that's how we generate our money. The reasons we generate money is because we have a scholarship program, every year we give out a nomination to a deserving college student who would go through the process of requesting and filling out for a scholarship, and we go through a small pool of people who have put in for that, and we choose the most deserving people. I think the last couple of years we've actually chosen 2 over the few years, and so one of the things that we're talking about is how can we raise more money, because we obviously don't want to drain what little money we have in the bank. And I think as oh, that's proprietary. I'm not going to put that number out there, but we want to figure out how we can gain money. So I have been talking with a point of contact from the St. Kilda Kilt Corporation based in Edinburgh. And we have been waiting for them to present us with several packages that we could, as a board, decide which one may suit us. So that would entail them producing Morrison content. We, as planmorrison.net and our Facebook organization, hosting a web link to their website, and then receiving kickbacks from, or percentages of any sales that they make would be coming directly back to the society. So one of those things that we could be using that money for would to help pay for the scholarships that get chosen every year. One of the things I'd like to do is sponsor the chief when he goes, because he will frequent events throughout North America. What we would like to do is help him so he's not paying out of his own pocket to go to these events. We should be, so if we can have a positive income of flow, using it to make sure that Allie can get to events and enjoy his chiefdom. We also want to talk about the direction of plan monies. I guess that's just a bullet point. Every year we're noticing a decline in the number of lifetime members versus annual memberships. And I think in respect to the trends of monies for the nations and for younger people, as our older members are moving on, we're just not replacing the older generations with newer members. And it's hard for people to just say, okay, here's $350 for a lifetime membership, or $25 for an annual membership. So we have to come up with ways to bring new blood in, per se, to the clan. And one of the things that we had talked about at several meetings was reducing possibly the amount of monies that prospective members are paying to get in. And that would be one of the reasons why we talk about merchandise sales, to kind of buffer any reduction in payments that annual members or lifetime members are being made asked to make. One of the things that we're talking about doing is going away from the paper newsletter, because it costs a lot of money to have those printed and sent out through the nation. So we may be working on digitizing that whole process. Now, I know a lot of our older members really enjoy having the newsletters, and we haven't put out one. I believe 2017, I think, was the last one. We're working really hard. We've had a number of turnovers on the executive committee. I'm a new chairman. The last chairman stepped down. And we've had a turnover, and what we're trying to do right now is reorganize basically from the ground up. So we've got some members that are trying to move out, and we don't have enough new members to replace them. So I believe Bob has taken over the newsletter, and we're trying to get new content, and we're trying to figure out how to get that up so we can put out the newsletter, because we know you guys want it. We're working really hard on getting that out. It's just a difference between printing one out and digitizing it. we're trying to come up with new material for you guys, and it's actually kind of hard to do that. Moving on. I have taken over from June Alvarez was our former treasurer. She stepped down on January the 1st. Myself and Chris Gilmore, the Clan Shawnee, will be taking over as interim treasurer until the time that we can find and appoint a trusted person, so somebody that can then hold the clan monies. So I've started getting checks in the mail from our annual members. I think I've only got a half a dozen or so, so I know there's a lot out there, but I have started going through the former treasurers, stacks of papers through the computers. I'm learning the system. So please bear with me, because this is a new process for me. I'm terribly unorganized person, and I'm learning a brand new thing. So it's going to be some time, but as your checks come in, they're going to be deposited, and we're going to be doing so. If you feel like we're ignoring you, please don't feel that way. We're reworking the system. Let's see. On my agenda, I had break time, so we're not going to get into that since we don't have to. Do we have any old business from last month that we need to discuss?
Mind on the newsletter, Bob Morrison of North Carolina was going to take over that. He just broke his femur. He's been in the hospital for a while, and he's waiting on some data to be transferred from Roland Tremblay to him so that he can have the archives and the templates and all that and get to work on it. So as soon as he gets that, we should have newsletter back up and running.
And we are not,
how's he doing? How's his recovery going?
We are not headed north until toward the end of May. So our files are up there. We're in Florida right now and have been since the beginning of the pandemic. So as soon as we get up north, we will send Bob all that we have.
If somebody has an old copy, a reasonably 2017 copy, maybe that could be sent and some scans could be done for an sort of an interim process.
I sent Bob some older newsletters, include like the most recent one that was published and a couple before that. He doesn't have the software, he's just having problems coming up with templates from scratch.
Okay.
And that's what we had to do.
But we are working.
That's what we had to do when we took it over. And I think it was close to 2000 from Jeffrey Morrison Moore, who just passed away. We had to completely redo it ourselves and get the software that would run the program. So, it's like you have to do it, reinvent the wheel each time you do it.
We're using a specific software program?
It's out of date and out of print now.
So we really should be moving to Word or something like that.
That's what Bob was trying to do.
Does he have the ability now that he's hurting?
Not while he's in the hospital. I'm not sure if he's out yet.
He says he's out of rehab. I just got a note from a couple days ago.
He's been trying for a while now.
Yeah.
Mainly, he doesn't so much need the software as he needs the just like a template to base off of, and like Roland has an archive of images and other things that can just be added in and stuff. Bob has none of that. He's starting with basically an empty hard drive. And
that's what we had to do. That's what we had to do as well. Start from the beginning.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, what it sounds like to me is that probably looking towards the end of the year before we're actually making really groundbreaking work on this thing.
I'll tell you what,
somebody send me the material and I'll put together something. And if somebody else will worry about the distribution side of it, I can get something out. I mean, just so, offlines, people send me what they've got. And somebody can pick it up by the end of the year, because I don't really feel in the position to take it over on a long-term basis. But I can get something out at least. We need to get something out there.
Okay.
Send me
Alright.
what you got.
Do we
Sounds
have
like
any, thank you.
What's one of these other people who are here want to step up?
We'll get to that. We'll get there. Do we have any new proposals for the meeting? Is there any new things that anybody wanted to talk about? Okay, so
Michael,
just to rehash the meeting. Yes,
Michael, we had the language for kind of our charter regarding the selection of treasurer. And I don't know if we need to, that probably has to be done at a formal meeting. So I'm guessing that should be on the agenda for the AGM, whenever that is.
that's right.
Something that we'll have to ratify that language for the new process of selecting a treasurer.
Yes, we need to look in, I have to look into the Constitution to see if there are any words that would allow us to institute any policy changes in the interim before the words can physically be amended in the Constitution. So we need to go through and say, we can do this, and then we'll amend it at a later date. Because you're right, I spoke with Chris earlier today about that language, and he had suggested that that's something that may also have to be done at the AGM, wherever that's going to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. As far as my agenda is concerned, as far as the agenda is concerned, I don't have anything left but to close the meeting. As we really don't have any time constraints now. But since the original meeting was set for 80 minutes, we are at, I think it is 5:52 now. I want to open it up, open forum for any of our guests or any of our board. Allie, Andrew, and Chris, if you guys would like to talk. If there are any questions, just open it up and we'll just have an open forum right now for, let's say, until 15 after. Is that okay with everybody?
Yep.
That works for me.
Okay.
And if the conversation starts to flag a little, Ali can bring out his fiddle.
I second that. I would like to say, Andrew, I like your shirt. I like it a lot.
Yeah, it's not very different from yours, is it?
I think I have one pretty similar too.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
I don't have any really nice tattersall, but that is next on my purchase list for my traditional Highland civilian dress.
There you go. Well, Ali, just so you know what serious stuff is usually discussed on these meetings. Sometimes it breaks down into so what scotch are you drinking right now? Before that comes up, it's a Balvenie. So there you go. It's a 14-year-old company. But
Only 4 o'clock here, so we can't start for another hour.
too bad.
It's almost 7 with me.
Well, it's fine.
I think
I know everybody sees my little snifter. I know everybody can see my little snifter. I've been drinking out of it for an hour, but I'm not at home And I packed, doing some falconry this weekend, and I brought everything except my scotch. And we're staying at my mother-in-law's house, who has this available. That's all I've been drinking all weekend. It's terrible, but it looks good in this little snifter.
So Tim Reed, you've been posting and have been an active person in the background. Tell us about yourself, and do you have any questions to ask or suggestions?
Oh, thank you, Jennifer. I live in the Detroit, Michigan area. I'm retired public health person, and to prove it, I have my Morrison
All right.
and my 2 shots. So yeah, I have recently become interested more in genealogy, and I'm looking into my maternal grandfather's side. That's the Morrisons, and I'm active here in the St. Andrew's Society of Detroit. We put on our 175th annual Highland Games last year in a much condensed version, but nonetheless, we felt we had to do something. So I've considered doing a tent, but I don't really know what's involved in that as a convener. And I think I might go to another games, maybe Grandfather Mountain or something, and kind of see that.
Chris and Michael are your good sources for that stuff.
Oh, good.
And Jim.
And
Chris-
Jim.
This is a better source than Michael is. I promise you that.
So Tim, were you, if you're in Detroit, were you at the what was then called the Scottish North American Leadership Council?
No, I did not attend that, but our St. Andrew's Society was very active in it.
Yeah. Well, I enjoyed going to Detroit for that whenever it was, 18 months ago, I suppose, almost 18 months ago. And I hadn't realized until then that the Detroit Games may be the oldest in the country. And it's an amazingly strong Scottish community there.
It is, yes.
And I mentioned it afterwards to people on the Standing Council, and they hadn't heard of it. So it's a, I would encourage you, if you're involved with the people who run the games on a day-to-day basis, reach out to someone on the Standing Council and see if you can get one of the chiefs over to be a chief of the games, and it helps give the games a little bit of publicity in the local community. I know, for instance, Stone Mountain always does a tremendous job of integrating whoever the arriving chiefs are into the local news media and so on. It can work well. And if they don't want to, if they're really a bunch of cheap Scots and they don't want to spend the money, we do know that there is a chief in New Hampshire who might be easier, cost less money to bring in for the occasion.
I would like to say to anybody, if you have a question, you can feel free to unmute yourself and answer the question. I did see something from William McLemore that come up just now, and I think it's a good question that I don't have an answer for. I think Chris or Andrew might be able to weigh in.
What was the question?
It's in the chat. It's about,
any progress on adding the Macklemore as Macklemore as an official sept of the Clan Morrison is the question.
Chris, I think you can unmute William.
He
said he prefer not to speak on the mic.
Too much whiskey.
All I would say in answer to that
is Macklemore.
There is no such thing as an official sept. So I'm one of those purists who feel that most of the time this concept of septs is massively abused by some of the societies. When you go to a Highland game, you see 40 names up outside. These are all septs of our clan. And then you look at them closely, and they fall into different categories. And sometimes they are simple variants of the name. And that's, for me, both Gilmore and Macklemore are variants of the name and are as much of a as much Morrison as Morrison from that standpoint. But then you also have them putting up things like Reed, which just means red-haired, and you know, Scotland has the highest percentage of people with red hair of any country in the world. So guess
Careful,
what?
Tim's on here.
There are Reeds all over the place, and no, they're not related. And so the idea that Reed is a sept of any clan is just completely absurd. And most of those, a lot of those names that you see listed up there are absurd. It's almost like there's an arms race. You know, I'll grab the name Reed before some other clan does, and then it'll be a sept of my clan. And
Andrew,
yeah.
So the basic answer is yes, no problem. with
No
Mac-
problem. I mean, there isn't such a thing as an official sept, but it's a variant of the name is the way I would look at it. And so it is absolutely, we are delighted to have any Macklemores. And I mean, I think the sort of common derivation is MacGillmore, isn't it? I mean, that's seems to be where it comes from. And if that's the case, it's any son of Chris would be a Macklemore, right? Right, Chris?
Chris, you're not your audio.
Yeah, one of those.
Audio.
So in effect, well, it wouldn't be necessarily called a sept. It could be put into the literature saying, these are some of the people that can consider themselves Morrisons.
Yeah, and people used to put up Breve and McBreve on those lists. But I mean, for instance, one of the very common names in the Outer Hebrides used by Morrisons was Smith, because a lot of them had the profession of Smith, the great evangelical poet from the Isle of Harris, was known as the Smith of Harris. People wouldn't have used the name. I mean, it says John Morrison on his gravestone in Rodal, but people wouldn't use surnames in the Isles because they weren't meaningful. Everybody had the same surnames. I mean, there were only about 3 or 4 of them around. So yeah, he would have been known as a Smith.
He was John the Smith.
Well, yeah. I mean, he was Governor Hara. He was the Smith of Harris, and because those professions were often hereditary, people would be known as Smith. Well, we could put Smith up as a sept of Clan Morrison based on that. It would have just as much justification as half of these names that people put outside their clan tents, probably more than most. But no, not all Smiths are going to be members of Clan Morrison, I'm afraid.
William, I had a question. Since I'm taking notes, I noticed in your text it was LE, and on your screen it's LA. Is it A or E as far as Macklemore?
Could be either.
Yeah, and I wouldn't get excited about
Okay.
spelling in English anyway, because I mean, even in the original Gaelic, in that case, the spelling would have varied dramatically from place to place with the family. And scribe to scribe, it's like people used to get fussed about, are you a 1R Morrison or a 2R Morrison? Well, who cares? I mean, it's which scribe wrote your name down in English first. There isn't a difference. And people change from generation to generation. They might use 1 and then they would use 2 and then they go back to 1 again.
We have someone named Renee on here with no video, so they want to chime in?
Renee's iPad.
Renee's iPad is muted.
Hello.
Well,
And I've got, let's see, we've got someone named Pixel 3 XL.
That's
I've got something for anybody who can weigh in, and this is something that I see a lot, and I've been seeing it a lot for a lot of years, and it may ruffle some feathers. What do you guys feel about the clan myth?
myth.
Olaf the Black and his 3 wives.
Let's use the term tradition.
Fair enough.
Uh,
There you go.
I think there are 2 ways of looking at that. You can look at it wearing a scholarly hat that says we're interested in what actually happened, and then you can wear a different kind of scholarly hat and say we're interested in what binds people together into a clan. What are their traditions? So Chris Gilmore's predecessors as Shanachis would have had the job of finding stories that would glorify the origins and ancestry of the chief and make everybody feel good about being a member of the clan. And they didn't have any access to historical records, so most of the time they made things up. I've talked to the chief of the Monroes a few years ago, who said he was absolutely thrilled and shocked to discover that one of their traditions may actually be true, which was that they came from Ireland. Now the Monroes are in the northeast of Scotland, and yet their origin story, like a lot of clans, was that they came out of Ireland. And he said, we've done some DNA testing, which suggests that we actually were out of Ireland. And it was a tremendous shock and surprise to him, because that's not that's not the role of those traditions. That's not what you expect of them. It's not what they're there for. But I love them. I mean, I love having these stories and traditions, and some of them are mutually exclusive. We've got multiple origin stories, and that's okay. I think we treat them as things that motivated our ancestors. When the clan society was being set up in Scotland in 1909 or whenever that was, these were the stories that they honored and that brought them all together in their search for a chief at that time. They wanted to be together as a clan, and they looked at those origin stories with affection and excitement. Does that help?
No, it's a great, that was great. So I like to ask people, because I hear from people all the time who are just absolutely fervent that, we came from a Viking society, and being at the, the northern, northwesternmost part of Scotland, you can say, okay, we can see that, and we can go back and do the blood work and in the history and finding where we came from. And then other people say, let's stop. Just not possible because the dates don't match. And so I see a lot of bickering about that from time to time on other web pages. Sometimes they get into like shouting matches. I just think it's a great story, regardless of how historical it may actually be, factual it may be. It's a good story.
Michael, let me just throw in here that we as a clan, I think, have a very broad tent. And I forget the number of DNA threads we have, but in my head, I think we've got something like 30. And if that's the case, then obviously there are 30 origin stories at the very least, and probably double that number. And I think one of the things that we really ought to do more of is encourage finding some of those other threads and making them equally honored in our tent, so that when people come in and they say, well, gee, that's wonderful that we all come from the Vikings and Lewis. That's really great, because I always wanted to be a Viking, but frankly, I just did the DNA and it says I'm from London or whatever, or even from my great grandfathers and three levels down came from Senegal or from Mauritius, and we're Morrisons, and we want to make sure that they have a place in our tent as well. And to do that, we need to start incorporating those stories as well, both the storyline and the realities of it, so that it becomes something that we can all honor.
One of the places where I differ a little bit from time to time, there are several, but with Donald McLaren, who's the current convener of the Standing Council of Chiefs, is he's the head of the McLarens, obviously, and he feels that they are a much more homogeneous group than for instance, the Morrisons are, and he likes to use the term kindred about his clan. So he says, you know, we're all McLaren together, we're all related, and it's not the same for many others. And in law, under Scottish law, what we have is a chief of the name. So Ali is the chief of the name and arms of Morrison. And that means that under Scottish law, every Morrison or Gilmore or Macklemore or Breve or McBreve or whatever is that's that person with the white building behind him is your chief. And so sometimes, for instance, people like to say, oh gosh, you know, I'm a member of 5 different clans. I've got this on this side and I've got that on that side. And this came up in one of our meetings of the Standing Council recently, and Elizabeth Rhodes, who is one of the senior people that Chris knows, I'm sure quite well, who in the Lord Lyon's office, said, no, you can only be a member of one clan. And that is what you're born into. You're a member of that clan, whether you like it or not. And so whether if you're a Morrison or whatever, whether we like it or not, Ali's our chief. And so the great benefit there is then we look at the DNA and we see we've got lots of different kinds of Morrison. And I think it enriches us to have that. We are all bound together in law, and we're all bound together into one clan in law, but we can have lots of different origins. And as Jennifer says, we should respect and honor and explore those different origins, but we have one chief. And that means that we can have one structure and one society.
That's awesome. I had found recently in doing some research into my personal lineage that I've found that I am very, very English. And I've traced back to the mid 1600s in Haughton Skerne, which is about an hour south of the Scotch-English border. And Chris had messaged me a few weeks ago and said, hey, I just did some research on that area, and you may be related to the person who is recorded as having the name Morrison first. So I thought that was neat. I'm not saying that Morrison is more English than it is Scottish, but according to Chris, my understanding is that the first usage of the name may be English. Who knows?
Yeah,
and I may be related to Guy. I'm trying to find that out.
The name is obviously not a Gaelic name, and yet the main place that Morrisons come from is in the Highlands and Islands. So it's the 3rd most common name in the Outer Hebrides. It's the 9th most common name in the Highlands in general, but it's only the 18th most common name in Scotland. So there's a clear concentration of where Morrisons generally come from. But it's not a Gaelic name. It's not a Gaelic form of a name. So what we do know is that people spotted this name, which already existed in some form in a non-Gaelic speaking part of Scotland, and thought, that's a cool name. It's not that different from my name. So that's the name I'm going to sort of coalesce into. And people did that. And so a lot of people who were Gilmores, for instance, decided to start using the name Morrison. A lot of other people who might have been O'Murchisons started to use the name Morrison. All kinds of different people started using the name and coalescing into that group. That's one thing. That wouldn't make a clan. The reason that we are not just an interesting and common name, which appears all over the place, like Smith, like Brown, which are the two most common names in Scotland, but the reason that we're actually a clan is because there was a core group that existed in the Outer Hebrides and did things together as a clan and went to war as a clan and so on. And so we would all just happen to have the same surname if it wasn't for the Hebridean group. And that's why I think, well, that's why the Lord Lion wanted to pick a one of our family ultimately as the chief, and why we now have that legal status as a clan in Scotland, because you have to have a chief to be a clan.
Lion reinforced it with heraldry by diverting far away from traditional Morrison arms. He came up with something completely new that reflected the traditions of the Western Isles.
Right, even down to the Lion of Norway, the royal lion, to tip his hat, as it were, to this tradition, which may have no factual basis at all. This tradition that our ancestors came from Norway and were sort of Norse princes somehow.
Michael?
Gentlemen, someone is calling my name.
Yeah, Michael, it's Jim in New Mexico. There is one story of the clan that's very prominent, that there's actually a chance someone listening tonight can help us actually prove or disprove. And that's the Black House Bible and tartan it was wrapped in. Andrew and I spent a good bit of 2008, 2009, trying to track down leads on that all over America and Scotland. As it turns out, the daughter of the last person who is quoted in Scottish newspapers as having it lives in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and came to a festival one day, and I met her. So we never had any luck tracking it down. It may have been destroyed in the war. It may have never existed. Who knows? But there is a chance that someone in the clan today may come across information that leads to the location and verification of the Black House Bible and the original swath of red tartan.
And Ali,
That
just
would be incredible.
Alice, just so you know, if you didn't know, that the reason, therefore, that there is that reddy orangey tomato soupy tartan that your dad and granddad and great grandfather liked to wear, and that you see behind Jennifer and on her head, the reason that is sometimes called the chief's tartan and was associated with the revival of the clan and the appointment of your great grandfather as chief, goes back to this discovery of this slip of cloth in a when a wall in a black house in Lewis was being destroyed, and it was supposedly dated to the year that the Act of Prohibition of tartans was passed after Culloden, and so presumably someone had hidden this away in this Bible, and then it was rediscovered back in the 20th century, and it rang a bell with your great grandfather, who remembered at a prize giving for a games in the Outer Hebrides, seeing someone win a race, come up wearing a red kilt, come up to receive their award from him. He was giving the prizes, and he asked the kid, what's that tartan you're wearing? I don't recognize it. He said, oh, it's a Morrison, and then ran off again. But he sort of vaguely remembered it. And when they discovered the Bible, he said, that's it. That's the same one this person was wearing. So he formed a special liking for that red tartan. And so, you know, he wore it, Ian wore it, Rue wore it, you wear it. It's very much favored in your line.
I think we still have my great-grandfather's kilt in circulation. I'm not sure where it went. I know that kilts were divided up weirdly with Ian when Ian died, so Ian might have had it and it might have gone to someone else. It might actually be with Matthew, but
well, good luck with that then.
Yeah.
I think my dad has Ian's kilt, but I don't know what happened to my great-granddad's kilt.
Anyway, it's a cool story, and it would have been really nice, as Jim was saying, it would have been really nice to have been able to track down that original swatch. And you know, and one of the things that Chris Gilmore has talked about from time to time is being able to have a little museum of sorts somewhere that we could have of Morrison things. You know, maybe somewhere out of Hebrides. It would have been a perfect thing to be able to put into that collection as a sort of central piece.
Would, I mean, things get lost all the time. That doesn't mean they're gone forever. They might turn up eventually.
Yeah.
We put them in the wall someplace and bricked them over.
Exactly. It got hidden once for who knows how long. It could have been hidden again.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, I don't want to intercede too much here, but we have reached the allotted time for the end of the meeting. That being said, I'm having a great time and I don't have anything else planned for the night. So anybody that wants to stay is welcome to stay. I'm just having a great time listening. So I'm not gonna just hit the end button because this is just fun. It's fantastic
Andrew's
for me.
pouring another dram. He's ready to go.
We're ready to go. So
I need
yeah,
to run
fair
off, so
enough.
goodbye, everybody.
but Michael, you know, I think the reason getting is because you said gentlemen, which, you know, you've got to be aware that we have some ladies with
And
us.
ladies.
There we go.
And
Well,
I'll
these
bid
guys
you
were the
all
ones that were
good night,
talking.
too.
So.
Anyway,
night.
Good
lovely
night.
to- Jennifer, lovely to see you all.
Good night.
Thank you.
Night.
I've had to move
How
from
do
where
do
I
this?
was to the lazy boy in the black room, because everybody else was anxious to move back into the house. They were outside while I was having the meeting, and then you'll be hearing children screaming and wives crying probably in the background. But please continue if you want to. Chris, how are you looking on time? Okay.
I can stand.
Chris is our host this evening. Thank you, Chris. You're doing a wonderful job.
All I did was click a button, man.
And that's more than I did. So thank you.
Well, I can see that you and Ali are going to get on famously as Shanachie in chief, because you both understand more about computers than I will ever do in my life. So.
Only trying to go to school for it.
Yeah, there you go.
Do we have any guests that are listening in now that have questions for the chief and chieftain and Shanachie respectively? No? I'm sure we could figure out something to talk about. I've got a question for Allie. I don't want to put you on the spot too much.
Okay, what's up?
Being possibly the youngest chief and having several years, I would imagine, before you ascend, I know you'd like to
And
go
the
to
most
college and
prolific martial
become a
art.
professor.
You know
We
what?
can talk about that. I took off for a long time.
Gotta have a warrior chief.
As a chief, and you know, you've got a couple of years before you finish college. What are some of the things that you want to do? I know you have personal aspirations, but is there any way that your personal aspirations line up for your chiefly duties?
I am young, so I don't know that much. That's just a fact at this point. But one of the things I have learned in the short time my dad was chief is that the North American Society is basically the only one that is functioning well and running routinely and operating well and putting on events routinely. And the other two largest societies are Scotland and Australia, and neither of those are working particularly well right now. One of the things I really want to do is get both of those going again so that we, and possibly all working together, North America, Scotland, Australia, three of the places where we have a large population of Morrisons, so we can put on international events and just work together and have a little more going on than just in North America. Because while there are a lot of us here, we are also a worldwide community, and I feel like our worldwideness isn't quite where it could be.
For Australia, I think it's actually dead.
Oh no.
It is, but it could be revived. And one of the
Yeah.
things I'd like to mention there is, you know, when Rue came down to San Antonio for the games here, what was that, about 3 years ago, 3 years ago?
I think he took me down with him.
No,
I
you didn't
remember
come
getting
to
back
that.
Texas.
Not for this one.
Other one. Okay.
Yeah, you came down to Arlington, I think, to Arlington, Texas. But anyway, when he came down to San Antonio just 2 or 3 years ago, it was an opportunity, amongst other things, to meet another cousin who is called Rod Morrison, who lives in New York. And Rod's grandfather was a brother of Rue's grandfather and my grandfather, so they were three of the brothers.
Yeah.
And that branch, those Rod's father and his brothers all went off to Australia. So there's a whole lot of family members, not just clan people, but family members in Australia, and Rod is in direct contact with them and has regular Zoom meetings with them. And I think Rue even joined on one of those. And so I think it wouldn't be difficult to get the Australian group together, starting with that fairly close family group.
Yeah. I mean, especially since they are of like the line of the chief, kind of like our line is.
Yeah.
They'd be good people to have starting it.
Yeah, I think they'd be motivated to do that. So when you're ready to look into that and you want to give it a prod, Rod would be the guy to reach out to those people.
I mean, all of these things I want to do, they're after my investment. I don't really plan on making any. I'm not planning on making any big waves anytime soon. The most I plan on doing is appearing here, going to games, but the reason I'm not being invested is because I'm not at the point where that's like where I can be all the time, or to the degree that it would be most beneficial.
Well, I rather love the fact, and this is something I've mentioned to Chris before, but I love the fact that when Prince Charles was invested as Prince of Wales on his 21st, when he turned 21, he was able to give a speech in Welsh, which was extremely impressive. So it take a couple of years to get your knowledge up to that point. We'll look forward. We won't necessarily understand what you're saying, but we will be extremely impressed.
I'll write a short speech in Gaelic.
I got the first.
I think
I'm gonna have.
I think it shows great maturity, Ali, that you're holding back and you're not rushing to get the big seat, and that you're willing to take your time to do what you need to do for yourself. I think it shows a lot of maturity that you're willing to wait and not rush into the big seat. I think that's great.
Thanks. I mean, frankly, there's just a lot going on in my life right now, and there's going to continue to be a lot going on in my life right now. And once I can, I'm not in college, I can land a steady job and my life kind of gets a little more rhythm to it and is less unpredictable. That's when I can really focus on doing other things. And that's when I'll have more time to take a trip over to the States, to Australia, go down somewhere in Scotland, because I'll hopefully be over there in college. Go to a games, visit, talk with people. I mean, another thing I'm really going to have to be learning, and I'm hoping to pick up a bit of that over the next 5 years before well, not really, more like 4, considering I'm almost turning 17. Before our planned investment is, I want to learn, like, what am I really doing here? Because the role of the chief isn't exactly written in bold anywhere. And I kind of feel like I need to find out what I'm gonna make of this role. And I don't quite know yet.
That's a great idea. It's a great idea. It doesn't come with a handbook.
No, it would be so much easier if it did.
Although Chris would be quite happy to write one for you. Chris, I got the feeling that you were trying to have down at some point. Is that what you were trying to do?
What, the volume?
No. Were you trying to wind up the meeting? Is that what you were doing?
No, it's fine. It can keep running.
Okay.
I may have a little bit of good news on the youngest chief front. I just Googled it and came up with an article from the Scotsman online that the fellow we were talking about earlier, McGilvery, Gilvery, however you pronounce it, Andrew, was 29 when he was approved to be chief. They had not had a chief in 76 years, and he's still not been in. It may happen this year, so you've got a little bit of time on the fellow.
Just a few, just like a decade.
All right. Well, I think I'm gonna have to wind down here anyway. So it's been wonderful seeing you all, and look forward to the next meeting. But do stick around.
Thank you very much.
Hi, Andrew.
Good to see you, Ali.
I'm going to bow out myself. So I'll see you all
As
next
well.
week.
I think I may actually go have dinner, as I haven't done that yet.
So last time I spoke with Jennifer, I promised her that I would bring my bird out for her because she's been begging me to do it last couple of meetings. So I know she's gone. She's already left. This is Vlad. She gets to see this when she watches the instant replay. I think everybody in the group knows that I'm a falconer. I promised her I would bring the bird out. So here he is. He won't be out here for very long. Yeah, that's what we were doing this weekend. We came up north a little bit to do some falconry, to try to get some rabbits and some squirrels. We didn't get any, and I had to chase him through a swamp a couple of times. But here he is, Jen. So there he goes. Vlad the Impaler for you. I actually think I'm gonna have to go. I'm gonna have to go too. I got some dinner waiting on me, and a child that probably needs to get changed. Ali, it was great seeing you face to face for the first time. I hope we get to do this many more times. For those of you who are really wanting to get involved, who don't know how, these forums, we're hoping to make them a monthly kind of a thing. Some people may come and go. It may not be all the special guests all the time, but if you really want to get involved, this is a really good place to start. We want to hear you, we want to talk to you, meet you, and then like I said, we have an election coming up soon, so we really want to get the clan involved in these meetings so that people can understand what's going on. There's a little bit a lack of clarity between the executive committee and the Facebook page and clanmorrison.net that I think we need to fix. So as we keep doing these will get better. Hopefully, if we get attendance up, we can bring in special guests to talk about heraldry or genealogy. maybe we'll have someone play the bagpipes for you at some point. I don't know. We want to keep doing these. And if this works out, this will be a monthly thing, and we'll get a lot more involvement, and we can grow our society and our clan, and we could be more interconnected with clan proper. That's what I want. I want us to connect, to be closer as a family. So I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight.
Thank you.
Good
Thank you, Ally.
job.
Thank you, Andrew, and thank you, Chris, for being here.
Yeah, no problem. Good job on your first appearance, Ally.
Thanks, Chris. Was a little stressed about coming on and doing it, but I think it went okay too.
Yeah, you did great, man.
All right, I'm gonna go to dinner as well. Good night,
And you're
everybody.
welcome. You're welcome to come to any of the next one. Good night.
Good night.
Good night, everybody. William,
Bye.
I'll address you via Facebook Messenger in a little bit on your earlier question about the connection between the names. I'll message you on Facebook. No problem. And I believe that's it. We're out.
Good night.
Night. Have a good one.